So today we're going to look over how to take your turn in Mortal Kombat 1. What does it mean to take your turn and when you can do it and when you shouldn't try to take your turn back. Now, if you do not know what frame data is, if you're not familiar with frame data, what it does on block, what it does on hit, I have 2 videos talking about frame data, and this is information that you 100% need to be able to understand when you can take your turn and when you cannot take your turn back in fighting games, and specifically in Mortal Kombat 1. So please go watch both of those videos before you watch this one. So when is it your turn technically in Mortal Kombat 1? So it's usually your turn when your opponent is blocking, when you blocked your opponent doing a move that is -7 or slower, or obviously if you hit them, right? So that is just the gist of it, generally speaking. So now I'm going to break down each situation. Unfortunately, we do have to talk about frame data a bit. If you are unaware of your character's frame data, you want to go in the practice settings, go down to the HUD, and then put frame data on the left side, because that is where your character is. So you will see the frame data at the bottom here instead of just going into the move list over and over again. And whenever you do something like on block or on hit, it'll show up right there. So why did I say in the first part of the video that you can steal a turn at -7 but not at -6? So in Mortal Kombat games, the recovery of anything done on block less than -6, meaning -5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, is quick enough that you can mash a down 1 on your opponent. So for example, if your opponent does something that is +1 on block, that means that their next move will have a 1 subtracted from it. So for example, in this situation, you want to use your fastest move, which would be your jab, your standing 1, right? Which usually in this game, it seems that for a lot of characters, it is 7 frames. So if you do something on block that is +1, then immediately after you do standing 1, right? Then that move will not be 7 frames startup, it'll actually be 6 frames startup, which means that for your opponent, it actually subtracts 1 from their fastest move. So if they try to poke you with their down 1, that is 7 frames startup, it becomes 8 frames startup. So in this situation specifically, you will be able to continue to keep your turn, even if your opponent blocked it, because your startup move is 6 frames and theirs is 8 frames. So the same thing applies to any move, whether it's negative or positive. If you do something that is negative on block, like Kenshi's back 4, then it will add -6 if I try to do a standing 1, right? So the startup isn't 7, it's actually 12 if I do it right after. Obviously this won't be reflected down at the bottom, but it is like a math equation that happens in the background, sort of, right? So in this situation, in this game specifically, anything that is slower than -7, so in this situation it would mean -7, -8, -9, so on and so forth, or forced to block after, because anything your opponent does will be faster than what you try to do. You will have that -7 added to your move, while they will have that removed from theirs. So theirs will end up being way quicker than yours. Hopefully that makes sense. This brings me to the notion of respect. Respecting, it means that you understand the frame data or the move your opponent just did on block. You know they have the advantage. Like if I do 2-1 with Kenshi on block, I have the advantage. If I do standing 2, I have advantage. If I do standing 1, I'm at 0, which means both are neutral. No one has the advantage and no one has a disadvantage. This is the neutral state, right? Basically, you acknowledge that if you press buttons when your opponent has the advantage, you will get hit in the process of attempting to take your turn back. So it will hit you out of it, right? You will get a counter. However, there is also the notion of disrespecting your opponent. In this case, which is especially relevant in MK1 because so many characters don't have good and fast mid attacks, you can actually low poke your opponent out of their pressure. Even if you do not have a frame advantage and they have the advantage, you can steal a turn, because generally speaking, most of the fastest pressure tools in this game are highs, which is the standing 1 or the standing 2. So if you're crouching hitting your opponent, even if they have the advantage, you will still be able to hit them out of it. So let's say I do this with Kenshi, right? This is +2. Well, I can still hit him out of it, even though his standing 1 technically had 2 subtracted from it, and I had 2 added to it. I can still poke him out of it, right? And when you're crouching, highs go over your head. So let's say the first hit doesn't hit, right? And then they still go for it. I can still hit him, like you can actually react to him trying to do it. Because it whiffs on you, you know, even if it is faster, because it doesn't hit you, you still have the advantage. So that is one of the weird things, you know, about MK1 and MK games in general. But especially this one, because there are no good mids. Like Kenshi's good mid is 14 frames startup. So the thing is, your poke will still beat him, right? Now, Hitstun is a situation where you have the advantage, and where it's still 100% your turn. So whenever you hit the opponent, there will be an animation of them getting hit, but during that animation of them getting hit, the opponent cannot control their character. They are stuck in that animation. Some of them are longer than others, but it's the same thing. Because they are recovering out of the animation, they cannot control their character. So I will show you on my controller. I will play Melina, and I will have Kenshi hit me. And you'll see, I'll try to press buttons, you'll see how long it takes for me to get out of that animation, right? So it does take a while. So this is what we call Hitstun. So even if you do not confirm into a full combo after hitting your opponent, the time they are hit-stunned, you still have that advantage, so you can still like pressure them, right? So if they press buttons on you and they don't block instead, they will still get hit. So in that situation, if it happens to you and you get hit but they don't confirm you to a combo, you do not want to press buttons unless you want to challenge or disrespect. If you think they're going to use a high, then you want to do a down 1 or your fastest poke, right? But in this situation, you either want to block or again do your fastest poke. A Blockstun is another type of animation. It's similar to Hitstun, except it applies to your opponent or yourself being stuck in a block animation after getting hit by the opponent. So this happens only after certain attacks. You will see your character blocking but being pushed back. For example, if I do a standing 1, Melina just blocks it, right? However, if I do forward 2 to forward 2, you can see that she like takes a step back. Well, during that animation, you cannot do anything. You can't push your opponent and you can't press buttons. Again, you are stuck in that animation. Are way more visible against fatal blows. Like, it's so hard to punish fatal blows because you're stuck in a Blockstun for so long that sometimes if you do not have a far-reaching moves, you can actually punish your opponent for using it on block. Let's say I block it. Like, it takes a while for me to be able to move. Like, you'll see I'll be pressing buttons until I can move. Like, it's still a bit substantial. Some fatal blows have a worse Blockstun than others. Some have 2 hits, like Raiden's. But yeah, it really depends on the fatal blow itself, which is annoying, but essentially that is what Blockstun is. Now, the last thing that dictates if it's your turn or not is a whiff. Let's say your opponent whiffs a move entirely and it doesn't connect. This is also a situation when you can not only take your turn during their whiffed animation, but you can full combo punish them as well. So let's say Melina whiffs, you know, this in my face. This is a situation when you can take your turn, because during that animation that they whiff, they are stuck, they can't do anything about it. Which means that, you know, you can do something about it. So you basically steal their turn by full combo punishing them. So to recap, you may take your turn after you hit the opponent, after you do something that is a -6 or faster, -6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and so on and so forth, when they whiff a move in your face, as I just showed, when they're in Hitstun or Blockstun animation, or when they pressure with highs, even if they have the frame advantage, you can do a crouching move, and you can steal the turn even if you don't have advantage. Now, you cannot take your turn after you get hit. You do something that is -7 or so on block, or during Blockstun or Hitstun animations. And similarly, you can get poked out of your pressure if you're using highs, so make sure to know which mids your character has and how quick they are. Sometimes in this game, it's really just best to stagger, right? Do this, back away, fish for a poke or something, and then punish the poke. That's kind of the name of the game. So I hope this tutorial helped you guys figure out when you should be taking your turn in Mortal Kombat 1 and when you should just be blocking and not push buttons. If you have any other questions, leave them down in the comments below. And as always, have yourselves a wonderful day, and I'll see you all very soon.